My main man. Comics on Politics, Episode 1,
Okay.
Adam Groppman.
Hey, all right, what's up?
Where in the world is Adam Groppman right now?
Wait, what do you say?
Where in the world is Adam Groppman?
I am in central southern Maine. I'm north of Portland. I'm in Brunswick.
How do
I'm
you like it? You used to live
loading.
in LA for what, 30 years?
I lived in LA for around 25, and I lived in San Francisco for 3.5. So I was close to 30 years in California. I was like 25, maybe a little more than 25 in LA. So long enough, man.
Um,
Longer than
now,
anywhere else I lived at one, shot.
so um, you're a stand-up comedian. You're a thinker. You're what they used to
Writer.
call, what do you call those guys? Um,
Rosario.
well, that too, the writer, but gigolo.
Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell people. Um, yeah, I teach improv and I custom write speeches.
Improv?
Yeah, I'm teaching improv for 2 years here almost.
Improv.
Improv or improv?
Um, so man, oh man, do we got a lot to talk about right now when it comes to the state of the union.
Yeah.
Um, you
Well,
and I always I remember back when we would talk about when 9/11 happened,
okay.
and we would have to sort of like reconsider what it meant that we had George Bush in there. But I don't want to think about that. I want to think about um, the decision that's going to come down pretty soon about whether Biden's going to stay
Right.
or go. And
Dude, it's an interesting situation. I
it's
mean,
an evolving situation, and my thinking is evolving.
yeah,
And I think it definitely depends on people's ability to remember that we're in a weird news environment,
yeah,
in a weird social media environment.
right.
You know,
Yeah, there's a few different, and I want to be fair because I always want to go back to the one prime directive of reality because there are other elections, and especially if you're earlier in the election and you're like in the primary phase and in past decades, when we always thought it was really important, but we look back now and we say we had more wiggle room and still didn't have to worry about the severity of the other side the way we do now. And
right.
the thing is, I get and respect in the past the argument it's not only winning, it's who we put up and how much principle and like what we're going to get done. And, I get all that. But nobody on our side is actually, I don't hear anybody talking about who's the right guy in terms of the different political flavors, right? Or where they are on the left. It's who will win or who should be the candidate in terms of winning, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that I just keep wanting to say to some people writing stuff online, well-intentioned people, it is about literally winning. It is our guy knocking out the other guy in the fight. And but the way the fight works is you can't, it's not actually knocking out, it's the judges. It's who the judges say did the knockout. And the judges are right now the American voters. And
I
they are
thought you
telling us,
meant the judges that are going to get appointed, like the Supreme Court and
yeah,
all
yeah.
the other
But I don't
judges.
even mean that. I
Yeah.
just mean it's like there's a boxing match. I'm using judge completely differently, and we'll talk about that for sure. But I'm just saying there's a boxing match to the death that is representing our two sides, and whoever's fighter wins, fucking wins it all, right? For 4 years at least. And so basically, the decider, it's not they're not going to literally get in the ring or have a debate where there's some objective measure of winning. It just comes down to, do those necessary voters vote for your side? That's still how we do it. That's even how the Republicans, they're even still talking about the vote and winning. They're not saying, well, we're going to win anyway because we'll just, they're acting like right now the vote is a thing, right? Fair and square. And we'll see what happens depending what happens in November. But I'm just saying that winning is winning the vote. And when people say anything else about being fair and being loyal or sticking with the guy or you only had one bad night, it's not about that. It's not what I think or anyone else. It is about those votes. I want to hear how we're going to win those votes. If they're saying don't trust the polls, Biden will win enough of these in-between voters, then I'm open to hearing that. But everything I'm seeing, I'm just not feeling like he's going to be able to pull off a 2020 right now.
My feeling has changed, and time has sort of like changed my thoughts just because I think I'll let some of that debate performance kind of fade in my mind, and I'm trying to remember that the accomplishments are actually something that people are taking for granted and forgetting and not even sure what they might mean, like infrastructure, the CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, you know what I mean? And a lot of those investments haven't started to bear fruit. And I think there's a case to be made. There's a thing that we can point to that I think, and I don't want to say we because I literally don't want to be on. I want to hear everybody, and I want to respect everybody, and I want to also recognize that, like, I don't know if I'm down with business as usual. You know what I mean? Like, I would like for, if there's a Democrat, for them to say, okay, we've heard you, and we're trying to, reach out to you and bring you in. And anyway, they always say that.
Here's the thing: if it hadn't been years, if this was earlier in history, even years or even many, many, many months, and it was honestly a Biden who still could actually function like he did at least a few years ago, I would say maybe it can soften up. Maybe it can win over some of those other voters. But they've never weighed and responded to his good accomplishments. They never have, relatively speaking. The 43% that he wins right now or whatever is the core, the people who, like, I think, like, have a grounding, like, just have a decent grounding. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not, like, I'm putting the Trumpers or the always vote Republicans over, like, you don't have to worry about them because they're not going to change. They are what they are. These in-between people, it's been so many months and so many things where they give him low marks, low marks, low marks. Unless someone shows there's this incredible disconnect between all the polls and what actually happens in reality. But I'm not sure that history shows that. And the thing is, if you told me on paper that
it's almost like history doesn't matter. Everything's changing so fast.
If you could read the future,
it does.
Right. I just want win. It's only win. There's nobody, like, he's not bad at all. There's, like, probably nobody who's like, oh, they'd be bad. What does bad mean compared to the alternative? Like, nobody's bad.
There is a huge shift around the world in authoritarian, scary stuff, and people who are adversaries who might read his discomfort and his inability to communicate as weakness, as everyone's trying to say there. So in a way, that the thing is, anyway.
But what I'm saying is that if you told me that no one else could win because somebody could predict the future, they really could predict the future, I would say, then fine, stay with him. I would say stay with him. Because we just talking about winning. This isn't like other elections. Everybody agrees too. No one, I don't think, is talking about who's the right choice more. Is that what they're talking about? They're talking about who's the right choice morally, or who's the right guy to be loyal to. Like, I got that more in the past where people said, let's vote Bernie and screw even whether or not what the outcome is. It's the right thing to do, and you have to build on a new kind of a like more principled thing. And even then, people said we don't have the luxury. Well, now almost everybody's on board that we don't have the luxury, right? And of the alternative. So if that is what one is operating from, then I think that it just comes down to a coach saying, how do we win the Super Bowl? Not are we loyal? Is it the right thing to put in Tom Brady? Will Tom Brady win the game? Not because of stuff on paper. Will he win the game, this game? And this game is voters. Voters. So we need to start, if we're going to stay with Biden, okay, cool. There's a lot of things on the plus side about staying with him. We need to put it out there what he does and what he's done so unbelievably in your face, so simple and bright and bold neon headlines. And then the Project 2025 is good that they're actually starting to get it out there, because that's a great short summary.
It seems to actually be people are getting the picture a little bit.
See, I just thought if you take everything about Biden, let's say you take his history and you transfer it over like science fiction to somebody who's like 20 years younger and like still normal, kind of vigorous, right? Could be 65 year old, I don't care. But I'm just saying, like someone who's still in their sort of like prime as a politician. I figured you would keep all the current Biden voters and you would just gain those people who were like, well, honey, he just looks like he's going to fall down. And he just didn't win me over because he's just lame. He's so weak, right?
It is excruciating to watch him try to power through some of the stuttering. And do you think that what's your prediction for whether or not they're going to stick with him or change? I know it's an impossible.
Oh, here's what I think. I think they can't. I'll tell you what I think. They can't really do it if he doesn't. It's almost absolutely impossible if he doesn't. So I guess the question.
Agree, of course, yeah,
right. And here's an interesting thing. This is a super interesting thing because this stuff is like movie scripts, man. This stuff is like would make, movie thrillers.
This is the only guy that could lose.
Dude, if everybody started more and more signing on, and I started just like more and more, and it almost literally became that situation where it's almost, what it's like? It's almost like an intervention where all your friends, everybody's in the room, and everyone else, even who walks in casually, go, "Oh, I'm not that close," but yeah, he's really, really, really bad, irresponsible drunk, and like, yeah, you definitely, and everybody basically signed up. Then it's you versus the world, right? And if it was him versus the world, that would be a really interesting thing if he actually did this hanging on thing. But the thing is that is what was I going to say? Yeah, when he says it's the elites,
yeah,
why don't they poll the public? Because I'm not elite, you're not elite. Like, dude. I mean, I think there are polls, like a huge percentage of even Democrats, like it's not that they won't vote for him. They're not going to like hurt themselves out of spite, but they feel like they don't like his lack of energy and mental acuity, but they don't like him as a
or more.
He's not a good fighter for us because
you can't make the case,
right?
So far in an unscripted format, because he has actually impressed me in the last few days with his like speeches at NATO.
Yeah,
where he's got a teleprompter.
Right.
He's recognizable. You know that.
No teleprompter, you're saying?
When there's no teleprompter.
Right. So he's better. You're saying he's actually better when he's free jacking.
No, when he's free jacking,
right.
Like in a debate, it's no bueno.
Oh, so he's better with the teleprompter. He's good at that. Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Terrible.
Right.
Yeah. But today, he's got an unscripted question answer session
Right.
at NATO for like 90 minutes, and
Right.
I think it's make or break today. I think today's press conference, which he's done very few of, and which is why we haven't seen this until the debate.
Maybe we could turn around those people. Maybe we could show those
Really, all
people.
today.
Um, maybe we could, because like I said, there's definitely a lot of like, there's this guy you probably heard about. He's this professor who came up with the 13 keys.
Is your screen?
Oh, sorry. I don't, that happens sometimes. You know what? It just happens when I don't touch it. Like it happens on their Zooms. It just pops to like shutting the video. I don't know why. But um, so there's this professor, and it's like you read about him a lot. He's interesting because he keeps a low profile, but he's predicted like the vast majority of elections because he has these things called the 13 keys.
Yeah, I've seen
And
him.
Trump even actually said, I like this guy. Thank you, because he like had predicted a Trump victory. And it's like the things are relatively soft things where it's like, is the economy good? Do you have charisma? Are you the incumbent? Is this good? But he said he knows how to basically like um, decide whether it's check or no check, like whether yes or no. And he can predict. And he said, right now, Biden still has enough of the keys to win. And he's like, he's like, he's going to put that before the current polls. I know things can change both in time, but also maybe there's a different behavior when it comes to going in the voting booth from the polls. But they certainly mean something. And they certainly, dude, are like, remember, like, it didn't feel good when we were up by 2%. Like, it was like when he was up and it was like that little percent that we had. I'm like, that's not good against a
No.
guy as extreme as Trump. The fact that he's anywhere close, and now it's just like there should be no surprise if Biden loses. There should be no shock. It's not like what? How did the best New England Patriots team ever lose to the worst football team? Like it's I'm sorry. It's just like and um and I don't know. Yeah, so I hope you're the same. I'm so used to the American public, some at least a percentage of them, being these weird kind of like in between people. Like I don't understand them a lot more than the Trumpers, because I understand if you have a certain personality that like you dig into Trump and his shtick, and you actually do want a lot of that right wing stuff.
And there is a lot of ways in which the government
Right.
proves again and again to
Right.
be highly inefficient
Right.
and almost to the point of creating perverse reverse incentives, in certain kinds of
But
entitlement
I don't
programs.
understand. I don't understand people who aren't already Trump voters. I don't even want to say Trumpers. I want to say
Yeah,
Trump voters, because there's Trump voters who aren't really Trumpers, but a big
right.
percentage are really Trumpers. And I just don't understand these people who were like, oh, like you're literally deciding like it's two restaurants or it's two flavors of ice cream.
One has a one of the
Right.
certificates that says F on it, or is your
Right.
health
It's not like
well.
it just doesn't make sense that it would even be up in the air. So I think that what those people needed to see is they needed to see power and charisma. And the thing is that that's why it's humans. It's the same thing, man, as so much of life and definitely everything that's performing. And there is a performance aspect. We don't vote for a little behind the scenes guy like Ernie in accounting, right? If it's like, are you going to vote for Ernie for accounting, or are you going to vote for Bert for accounting? They both are like, I'm going to.
The same thing has taken hold in um, Congress, where these folks don't even
Right,
want to legislate or compromise.
right,
They just now are raising money and giving fiery speeches and moving further and further apart
Right.
and seeing their job more as sabotage than meeting in the middle or
Right.
doing government.
Right. And there's a few guys sometimes.
Sorry, there's a
Right.
few old timers in there who remind them what the job entails. But
Right.
you know what? I'm so psyched that I got you. First of all, you crack me up nonstop. But number two, you have a couple of different perspectives I'm very interested in. One is as a comedian and an observer, but also as someone who's made a decision to leave Los Angeles. You've
Right.
lived in all parts of Los Angeles, including for the longest time when I knew you first in Silver Lake.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking a little bit about the decision to leave LA and about LA that you liked and attracted
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Sure.
ultimately led you to oh, don't let me
Yeah.
forget. I want to ask you at the end, do you think growing up in the Boston area has made you a little bit more kind of like in touch with the democracy and the fight and the revolution and the like struggle that kind of you see in the
Yep.
statues and the architecture and the
Yep.
museums.
Yep.
So let's go back to Boston and let me just ask you that real quick. Do you like? I wonder whether having grown up in the Boston area, it's in your face a little more.
I also think it's like absolutely, and we're in Maine now,
The whole like
but it's cut
Revolutionary War,
right. But here in
uh,
Maine, it's cut from similar cloth, right?
like
So
history that you
there's some
see as you walk the streets and like
right,
the Boston Common.
right. And it also is the civic culture though, because here in New England, for instance, and this is something that is not just in Boston, right? Where it's Boston, is kind of New England in that way, and but it's like out here, there is a feeling of rootedness in your local institutions, your local what's good about government, right? What's sensible and good about the local government and and more than some parts of the country where it's very much like government's over there and we're over here, and it's like here it's not, because it's historical and closer, and there's just something generally kind of moderate and responsible generally in New England. And of course there's some people who are like exceptions, and there's some great political, really good people all over the country. And definitely there's some really good ones in Los Angeles. Like Los Angeles definitely had a kind of people who I felt was very reassuring politically. You know what I mean? Like, but one slice. I don't mean all. And you can go very close out of LA. I think your mic's off. No, I can't hear you. Oh, no, now you're silent.
Bones, yeah.
Now I can hear you.
Right. But I think of like Los Angeles and Las Vegas as places where people would live there. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah. Oh, now I can't.
How about now?
No, I can.
Okay. Um, there's a lot of people in Los Angeles, and I think probably in Las Vegas too, who aren't from there. So they're just like,
Right.
you know, I'm only going to be there for a little while.
Yes, yes,
You can't
absolutely.
hear
I'm
me?
in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. The thing is,
Can
so
you hear me
like,
now?
yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So I was gonna say that, yeah. Can you hear me? I can. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, you sounded really faint. I might recommend some just speakers, like external speakers. That's what I'm using. Um, but I was
I
gonna,
hear you.
Okay. I was going to say that people around generally where we grew up, right? And also further around New England too, in general, but especially where we grew up in general, is a lot of what I feel decent, sensible, moderate, responsible kind of attitude, ethos. And I feel it here.
You're
Um,
actually.
oh, now I can't hear you. No, now it's silent. Silent. I can't.
Okay, how about now? Can you
Now
hear
I
me?
can hear you. I don't know what you did. Now I can hear you like pretty good.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Tell me more about the people there.
Yeah. So I mean, relatively speaking, I feel like New England is more moderate and responsible, and
Engaged.
there's less of that hatred for the government. Now, you don't find like you find very good, wholesome stuff around Los Angeles, right? In terms of that, like I like you, I worked in the LA schools and a lot, so you get to meet kind of regular people and like teachers, administrators, and I felt like it was a good like almost comparable to like the Boston area in a way. You know what I mean? With some cultural differences, but like a sort of like nice, feeling of fairness and equality and like respect for like democratic values and just universal respect, and also that like government, overall with its problems
Institutional,
is
decent
what.
institutions
Yeah,
with homes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like good, sensible, what some people call progressivism, but like not necessarily like extreme wacko progress, but it's like true progress and something that felt good and responsible where everybody can actually like kind of like benefit from it. Everybody, no matter where you are on that. And like, but yeah, I mean, but even being here, I'm really concerned about, what's happening and what could happen and what's going to happen, and I'm not alone. So it's like, but in Los Angeles, I really liked it and didn't even think of see, I didn't even moving was not even on my radar for a long time. So I definitely was not one of those people who was like, no, I'm gonna bail. I mean, it's not working out. Like part of it was just I was there. I was just like there. I was used to it, and I still felt like I had a lot of LA in me. Like I still felt like whatever happens or not, like I still got time that I can't imagine myself moving, right? And then it was only in the last several years, I forget, 5 plus, maybe 5 before we moved. We moved 2 years ago, that Robin and I, started to talk about it. And I started to have a shift. But it really, you know what it was? It really accelerated the year that it was the pandemic, the riots that like were around LA, and the 5 weeks of smoke where we couldn't go out and do stuff because it was unbelievable off the scale, from fires that were like 100 miles away, but all the smoke came in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it I guess it hasn't been that bad since, but we
Could
didn't
be any
know.
second though. I mean, there's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
a few going right now that are not
right,
contained, and it truly,
right,
it's like an earthquake. It's a fear that's always there.
right, right. But another big thing was that we wanted to be able to buy a home,
Right.
and that's just a very normal thing in America, like culture. Like not everyone can. I never even knew if I'd be able to really, but it's not a weird extravagance. It shouldn't be like a crazy luxury. It doesn't make you elite to just want to own
Huge gamble.
any home at all. Well, we couldn't do it in LA, really. I mean, if we tried to scrape and do it in LA, I mean, Robin doesn't think we could. Like it would be, I don't know what kind of a compromise it would be. Like it would have been maybe moving so far out. It's like almost, what are we talking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but there
But
was things about.
that's something that kind of changed. I mean, the prices
Oh yeah.
weren't always like that. I mean, they in LA. In fact, it
It was
was
better than other places. It was probably better than Boston. There was a time
yeah,
where
big
when we
time.
moved there to LA around the same time, somebody could have sold in the Boston suburbs and been a king in LA.
Yeah,
LA was crazy cheap. Even when you bought, relatively speaking,
yeah.
and it exploded. It just skyrocketed. And um which is weird to me because it's almost like, oh, the world discovered that little cool little find, Los Angeles, the center of entertainment and glamour, and so many like
Media.
aerospace, media. I mean, a lot of American culture where half the movies and TV shows you see are set, real incredible natural gifts, I mean, just amazing. I mean, yes, there's a flip side of it, the overdevelopment, the traffic, all that. But yeah, it was really a weirdly good deal. And I was nowhere near, neither was Robin, about thinking I could, just buy something. I was just always like get good rent and just hang,
You did hook up. I mean, you had savvy about that. You had a great deal in Silver Lake, as I recall,
I did.
right in the heart of
Yeah, I
Silver.
moved there before too. I moved there. It's funny because I moved there early. I sort of like bought low and silver. I mean, I rented
Sanborn.
low in Silver Lake, and I got to live in some other neighborhoods of LA. But yeah, I never paid a lot in rent. I never paid a lot. I think the most I paid was going half with Robin on the house in Burbank. Um, as
There's
a
also
grown
a
up,
hookup,
huh?
and that was kind of a hookup because you knew
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah, yeah, and it wasn't bad. I mean, compared to anyone else, it wasn't bad. It was still more reasonable than like a lot of people, than most people. It just I yeah when I just had a lot of like good sort of like deals because I was pretty flexible and had roommate situations sometimes and stuff like that. But the Silver Lake one was great because I moved in there so cheap in that little place, and around me, I mean, I was there for like Silver Lake, like it was punk rock, artiste, bohemian, and like, but little, you know what I mean? Like little Latino corner stores, like just what they call bodegas in New York, just like really, really real and really not hip and sexy and just really kind of musty. And there were hip people and a lot of like real interesting musicians, kind of living scattered dots here and there, but they didn't dominate. And it was like still some, we talked, there's still some rough in Silver Lake. There was still some rough gang remnants. The house just a few doors down from my building had a shot caller kind of a guy, and then his interesting eccentric cousin, um, Jimmy, who was like, "Oh, hey, bro, oh, do like bicycle, bro." But his brother, or brother, I guess it was so different, or whatever it was, who was like literally a guy out of American Me. He was just like this really, really like intense guy, like with a buzz cut, who just like he'd just sit there and he'd just simmer and he'd just look out, and he had guys coming to him, and he was in the house just one of the last thing before you come to that intersection of like right there, and like in, so you know what I mean, that crucial intersection in Silver Lake, Sunset Junction, whatever. And and his guys would come and they'd hang out, and they'd like, they were like, you could tell they're just guys who would kill you. I mean, they're guys who like I mean, they would break your arms, or something weird would happen if you had a bad incident, um, confrontation with them, and then it started to be like it started to change, you know what I mean? Like more and more, and the prices tripled, and for rent and stuff, even in the building I lived in. I mean, I was lucky because we had rent stabilization, like the little 3% thing, right? So that was good. But then in our neighborhood, and it was Cafe Stella was such a huge thing because Cafe Stella came in, and the guy took that whole complex. And that whole complex all of a sudden became like Cafe Stella, which just kept growing. And then the cheese shop. And when I moved in there was the magic shop, which was like bohemian, interesting weirdo, but like, but not the new, it was like back when you could have a weird wackadoodle shop in a neighborhood that was still sort of working class, where like literally they sell like spells and like, you know what I mean? Just like dehydrated mouse skulls and goat toenails clippings and stuff, and pentagrams and and
Remember when that was that the place that turned into Vice, the Vice store?
yeah, yes, I think Magic Shop was Vice. It's just the
No,
look of the
you've seen it since it's turned into the bar, Stella, right? They remember what had that kind of like
yeah.
extended sidewalk that they took over, and now there's none of that like sidewalk space.
So Stella grew in the years I was there, and even after I lived in Silver Lake, but I'd go visit, so that they had that neat little pass through thing where they would have tables and that little walk through thing they had. And there was Bar Stella. It was really became a whole compound. And then is it part of that actual complex that is the unbelievable coffee place? What's that
Intelligentsia.
incredible? Yes. Is that the same building? Does he rent to them?
I don't. I think
Or
so.
it's right next door. But anyway, that's another huge thing, man. Intelligentsia.
Yeah.
My God.
But
And when I
it was really kind of from a sort of like
yeah,
a street life perspective. I was bummed when that sort of bar that space that was the Vice store and had
yeah,
kind of like a sidewalk
right.
area was reclaimed. I guess they call that a variance or something that they
Yeah.
were able to somehow claim now, and it still got a little bit of stuff, but it was neat because it was just where Sunset and Santa Monica merged,
Yeah.
and also Sanborn kind of
Yeah.
came down. And
Yeah.
so, every time I see that, I'm a little sad that, but
And there was
it's a
Circus of Books.
thriving bar now. I mean, it's a very thriving bar.
Oh yeah. And
It's
it's
got a
it's
plant store too in there somehow, some way.
yeah, plant store. And then when Vice first opened, see, I didn't understand what Vice was.
Me neither.
I didn't understand the media empire. And I really did actually still like the actual Vice news